Welcome to the Divine Purpose Podcast, where we transport you along one of the more dynamic journeys of life. Have you ever been curious to know what it takes to become a successful leader? Or about knowing the secrets of life through the Bible? How about engaging in conversation where no topics are off limits? We will take you to new levels with guests who can help you grasp the importance of your calling. Now, here's your host, Eddy Dacius, founder of Dacius Facilities Management.
Hey everybody, this is Eddy Dacius. We have a great show for you today. This episode is brought to you by Dacius Facilities Management. Dacius Facilities Management, they will manage your property with a variety of services such as cleaning, maintenance, construction, project management. Please call them now at 617-237-0106 or go online at daciusfm.com, DACIUSFM.com. Today, this is our 6th episode. We have a great show for you. Our show is brought to you, like I said, by Dacius Facilities Management. We have a guest. Her name is Katie MacDonald. Katie MacDonald. She's the CEO of MacDonald Wealth Management, LLC. She's going to be with us today talking about finance. So we have Katie. Katie, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for coming. So, like we always start with everybody, so you're gonna talk about you. So, who is Katie for our viewers?
Yeah, so my name is Katie MacDonald. I am a certified financial planner. I own MacDonald Wealth Management, which is located in Mansfield, Massachusetts. We are a fee-only registered investment advisory firm. Most clients come to me first for comprehensive financial planning and goal tracking. I also, we do investment management. Last year, during the pandemic, I also spun off a separate company, Financially Fit with Katie, which is geared around financial literacy, providing information that can help be able to feel like you can go on or, reach the goals that you're trying to do. I feel like so many people, individuals were losing their jobs and it all happened, it felt like overnight. People may not have been putting so much emphasis of really knowing where they stand, did not have adequate cash reserves, did not know how they were gonna, make it, would they be able to get groceries for their family. So I created this separate company. We have a Instagram and YouTube channel where we're just putting out free financial advice to be able to empower individuals to feel like they can control their own finances.
Wow, thank you for sharing this. So, how did you start it with? I don't know if you really like math. So why finance?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So in college, I actually have an exercise science degree, concentration in physical education. And I ended up after college, after graduating with a bachelor's degree, I took some nursing classes. I wanted to work in cardiac rehab and work with individuals that had, varying heart conditions. I realized very quickly in nursing school that I did not like blood, needles, or death. So I had to reevaluate. So this was in 2000. I don't know if some of you may not remember this or may not have even been born yet, but that was at 2000. We really were seeing the tech increase, the dot-coms, out in California, and, people all of a sudden being millionaires on paper. Well, living in Massachusetts, Boston had a lot of financial companies. So I was hired on at State Street Bank, and through that, worked my way up and ended up working on the fixed income trading floor within securities lending, and realized I really enjoyed finance, more of working with individuals. And from that, I had a great manager who, I had said, I'm not sure that this is what I want. There's a position at a company out in Providence, and it would allow me to start to really see how the world of finance worked, working in the retail side and working with individuals. So he gave me his blessing. I went, and he actually had said if it didn't work out, I could come back. And from there is where I learned about the financial planning concentration, or the program, and the certified financial planner designation. I hadn't been aware of that until I believe it was probably around 2005. The more that I dug into that, the more I'm like, that's what I feel like I want to do. So where, originally I thought I'd be helping people more in, the health field, it was more of, I wanted to help people in another way, help them with their finances, help them get to where they want. And I feel like I probably always had that of wanting to be able to work with individuals. And so I took a big leap of faith in 2008 and signed up at Boston University. I took their financial planning course. I was working at an investment management firm in downtown Boston. Wow. So I was getting kind of that mentoring and learning about things on the job. And then I would take classes at night, and then also became registered. I had my Series 7 at that time, my 65, and just really progressed on it. And then was able to get a position in 2011 where I was an associate advisor. And so again, I was able to see how things worked. I was setting up the financial plans for the advisors, sitting in on meetings, and then an opportunity. I was contacted in 2014 by a firm, and they had asked me, would I like to come on as an independent advisor? So basically step in and start creating my own business. And at that point, it hadn't really been something I had thought about. I assumed I'd maybe be in that associate role throughout my career, but there was something in me that was like, just do it. This is an opportunity. Wow, and if you don't make it, I had the designations to fall back on.
Okay.
So I just jumped in and in 2014 started building my own business, and here we are today. Yeah. I now have an office, and it's been a crazy wild ride with a lot of ups and downs, but
that's amazing.
I wouldn't do it any different.
No, that's amazing to hear. And I like what you said. You started in nursing, and now you in finance. Yeah. But you mentioned that, okay, you studied in nursing, but what was the tipping point where you said, no, nursing is not for you? I don't know if you can touch on that, so our listener can understand what the process looked like.
Yeah, so I was working at that time. I was working at a medical office, a cardiology practice, and I was doing, I would be kind of the intake. I'd meet with the patients when they came in. I would draw their vitals, check their medications. If they needed refills, I would, get the scripts ready for the doctors to sign off. And I would do some of the testing and get those ready for the doctors to read it. And in that, I found that I really enjoyed meeting with the patients. And so I started to, form relationships pretty quickly with some of the patients that would come in, because if they were having issues at that time, this practice did everything. They would set up if, someone had to wear a Holter monitor, or if they were doing any type of cardiac rehab. So we would often see the people in pretty frequently. And so it was probably maybe 3 or 4 months in, one of the patients had passed away, and I didn't really know them that well, but I had a tough time with that. But then also, again, taking the classes at night, I realized when the instructor would talk about certain things, I don't know, it's like I didn't have the stomach to handle it. So I just, at that point, made a decision of okay, is this really what you want to do?
Wow.
You're in your beginning part, because obviously there's costs associated with it. And at that point, I was like, okay, and I was great to have a great family, because I remember talking to my mom about it. She's like, well, you're going to have to kind of decide what you want to do. You just graduated with this with the hopes of, that's the way that you were going to go. So I was able, I moved back home and just started to meet with different headhunters. And then that's when State Street was having at that point, I feel like they had open houses all the time where you could walk in with your resume, meet with someone, and I was accepted into a training program where I actually trained for a month. And then once you went through that, that's when then managers could say, okay, you know what, they're good at this. Let's bring them into my department. So I didn't even know at that point, was finance what is that what I was going to want to do? I didn't really know. So yeah, I think you have to go with your gut instinct too. There was something that I knew that probably wasn't going to be, long-term what I was going to do, because unless getting the nursing degree, what I ultimately wanted to do, I wouldn't have been able to do it because I wouldn't have had that background. And at that point, I could have gone back and picked up I probably needed a few more courses where I could have maybe become a physical education teacher. Yep. But again, I didn't feel like that was my passion of what I wanted to do. So it was all about just kind of going back to the drawing board and getting into it. I can still remember when I first learned about a certified financial planner and what they did. And there was something that just really stuck with me. And at that point back then, Susie Orman was big on the scope, and she was coming out with multiple books. So I went and saw her do a lecture at Boston University, because at that point I was taking, State Street allowed you to take courses through one of their programs. So I would jump on it. And so I think that's another thing. I believe in education and I believe in learning, and I would just start taking some of these classes, and there was just a pull that, this is kind of what I want to do. But at that point, it was never in my mind, like looking at where I am now, that wasn't the intentions. It's just kind of progressed that way. So.
No, that's really exciting to hear. And I think our viewers will learn from what you said. But my thing is, in what I like to go in the process where, okay, how did you feel when you started to be in the finance industry when you first started? Or was your confidence? Did you have a mentor who kind of guide you there to kind of feel confident and then embrace the role?
Yep. So, the first finance job that I had, I won't lie, I was working in an international settlements area. Some of it was, and I'm going to say it was foreign to me. And I was working with, I want to say my countries that I was handling was the UK, Hungary, and then I believe I ended up moving on to Ireland. So I dealt a lot with the foreign exchange and things like that. And I was trying to learn it, and it was different. So it was completely different from what I'm doing now. And then I worked there for so long, and then I moved into private client side, and I was working on the pension side. So I was working with some of the larger pension institutes that were custodied with State Street, and I started to learn more. But still, it was more on the institutional side. So it wasn't until I transitioned over into the position in Providence, and then probably during the schooling when I started at Boston University, is when I really started to feel like, wow, this is what, it's so intriguing. And being able to, I work with so many different clients. Everyone has different goals. They're at different area points in their life. They all have different thoughts or mindsets around money and around things. So having that difference of being able to work with people I just found it very exciting. But again, I started out in finance in a completely different realm that, again, I don't think I would want to, do that long term. But it was a good stepping point.
So let's go into failure. I know working in finance, there'll probably be some failure. So can you talk about a couple failures you encounter in your career?
Yeah, throughout, like I said, it hasn't been an easy slope doing this, creating a new business or deciding to go as an independent advisor, trying to come up, because now all of a sudden you're a financial advisor, certified financial planner, but you also now wear the business hat, and now you're also the CEO and you're doing certain things. So there's been many, things throughout where, okay, how should I advertise my services? What should I do? And some things work and some things don't. And I think what has gotten me along has been, early on, individuals telling me, if you're going to do this, you need to have, thick skin. Don't take things personally and be able to roll off the punches. So, being able, if you're knocked down, being able to get back up and move forward. So where even over the last, since 2014, when I went independent, some things worked, some things didn't. Looking back, I wish that, some changes I probably made sooner than later. But the one thing now, having my own practice that I love is, when individuals are referred in, I don't necessarily, I like when clients come in off referrals, because I have a sense I know who they are. And being able, I spend time to get to know them and make sure that there's going to be a good foundation of a relationship there. And if there's not, then from the start saying, you know what, I don't know that will necessarily be a good match. I think maybe you should reach out to X, Y, and Z. And in the beginning, you take on everybody because you feel like you have to. And here's the thing. Everyone has different personalities, and we're not meant to work with everybody. And so I think being able to adjust that now and being at a place of really wanting to get that relationship, because like I'll tell clients early on, we have to trust each other, because I can only do so good as what I'm given from clients. And at the end of the day, my goal is I want to help clients reach the goals that they are. So I'm working for the clients. And so I wish that early on I had recognized that, or, but also when you're starting off, you're just starting off, you need to bring people on. So
No, definitely. And my other question is, so I know you started your business, but what did you learn from your previous experience and then you implemented in your business? Can you share a couple things?
Mm-hmm. So I've been very lucky that I've worked at a number of different practices under different advisors who all had different approaches. So I've been able to, shadow and really learn from some of the best and take, bits and pieces from some of their, how they did things, but put a spin on my own and be able to create it in a way of, okay, this is how I want my practice to run. This is, how I want to be able to service clients the way that I do. But I feel like had I not been working in those associate roles, or I started off as a relationship planner / paraplanner, where I really, was the person that handled, all of the day-to-day of the advisors. I feel like if I hadn't had that experience, I may not be who I am today. And so I will stress that often, in talking with, advisors who are just starting out, or maybe individuals that are thinking that they want to become a financial advisor and go for the certified financial planner, really stressing them to maybe start off in those roles, to really learn and be able to dive in and do some of that background work before actually stepping in to do it on your own, because I feel like there's just so much that you can absorb, and then you put your own spin on it, because everybody works in a different manner.
Yep, different manner. So any quick advice you can share with anybody who have some interest in studying their own financial management company or business?
Read, educate yourself, take courses, the more that you can educate yourself on that, and then look for opportunities, whether it be an internship or, starting off again in one of these more associate type positions, and really set yourself up and be willing to be flexible. I think often people, and I see it different too in different generations. Okay, this is what I want to do. And they think stepping forward, like, all right, I'm going to all of a sudden become the top advisor, bring in X, Y, and Z dollars. And it doesn't work that way. And then they just quit. And so I think you have to plan. You've got to take those baby steps. You have to be flexible and know that sometimes you're going to need to make adjustments. Don't beat yourself up, and educate. I can't say, more about just really being able to educate. I have taken, time off from work, usually in December timeframe, where I'll block myself out of work. And so people might think, okay, she's on vacation, but it's usually not. I'll read some of the new books that are out there. I go through some of the new techniques. Okay, what are certain things or patterns that I'm seeing within my clients? How can I come up with, new ways to help clients? Because it's hard on that. And so, and another thing is setting up your own goals, because if you're trying to become your own, boss or create your own company, you don't have then someone who's on you. So you have to be very disciplined, schedule things into your, into the schedule that's going to keep you aligned. So I think really setting up and projecting out, what you expect, or this is what I'm hoping over the next month or over the next week, to really kind of keep yourself in line, because it's hard. It's very easy to just say, oh my gosh, this isn't working, getting down on yourself. And all of a sudden, before you know it, everything just folds. Because I think people, patience isn't easy.
No.
And in this career, if this is the path you're going, you need to have some patience and you need to wait it out. And then also align yourself, find some networking groups, find some other individuals that are either in the same space as you, or, are in other fields that are also building, because it can be very lonely building this up, and you're putting a lot of time and effort. And so your outside world for a little bit might seem like it goes away. And that can sometimes, it can be depressing. So you want to make sure that you're aligning yourself with other individuals that are going through what you are, because you can really work off one another and really build each other up. And that I just feel like too, it was about 2014, I created a women's networking group with another individual I had met. And some of those ladies are still some of my best friends. And, they understand the challenges that you're going through, where sometimes your family or your close friends may not, because they're working a 9-to-5 job.
No, well said. And I like what I'm hearing here. I really like it. So, any certification that's required to start a business as a financial advisor? Yeah.
So kind of a twofold. So I am a fee-only registered investment advisor. So I do not sell anything that generates a commission. So I don't sell specific products. All of the financial planning is based on a fee chart. And then with investments, it's all based under an assets under management. So there's a percentage. So for that, you have to have a Series 65 license. Now, a lot of, regulators, having the certified financial planner designation is going to provide some more, I don't want to say make you more credible in the area, but you've got that schooling behind you now. And that, so certified financial planner provides it as a fiduciary relationship. Now, on the other hand, you can become, you could be a financial advisor. They have gotten stricter. Years ago, anyone could kind of call themselves a financial advisor, which was deceiving to the public, because how do they know what the individual has for licenses? So you basically, if you're doing anything that is stock-based, that is charging commissions, you need to have the Series 7. Now, you can have what's called a Series 6, where you can do mutual funds and things like that, but you can't sell stocks. And then there are state licenses. So there's the Series 63 that's out there. You could also then have the Series 65, because the Series 65 is what says I can provide advice for a fee. So you cannot be providing that kind of role unless you have that. So there are different licenses that need to be, that you need to have, and they have changed them along the way. So, and then there's other designations as you move on that kind of make things more specific depending on what your practice is. So depending on, what you want your practice to be, because you could also, along with that, have your health and life licenses. So you could do life insurance or disability insurance. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. I really like the fee-based model that I have now. I don't believe I would ever go back on the other side and doing the product. So now, if clients, there's a need for life insurance, for disability insurance, I've made connections with different individuals who sell that. And so I can go out to them, give demographics, get the numbers, and be able to review it first to make sure that the numbers align up with what my clients actually need, and then present it to the clients and then have them get in contact with the agent. So it allows me to kind of be like the quarterback and pull in these other areas depending on what they're looking for.
We are here with Katie MacDonald. She's the financial advisor. We think that what you're saying really makes sense, but we're gonna switch gear. So we have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Questions. So first question: what can you tell us about money? Like, as a financial advisor, top of your head, what can you tell us about money?
We all know money is something that you need to have in order to survive. Money can be very evil sometimes, though, because, people can get very greedy in it. However, we all know that in order to survive, you need to have money. So it's very important to have an understanding of how things work, have an understanding, what is good debt, what is bad debt, how to manage your money, how to look, are you setting up your pay correctly and having enough deductions that are set up so that, if we're looking at it in taxes, that, you're doing things in a smart way. So I think there's a lot of confusion around money, and, it's a shame that in schools and things like that, people don't understand it. I can remember being younger and seeing my mom with a checkbook writing checks, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Like, you can just write checks. Like, wow, where does that money come from? And so I think that there becomes a lot of confusion around it, and people don't like talking about money.
Yep.
Money can cause anxiety.
Yes.
And so that is often, we know, if we're talking marriages, a lot of times when there are issues in marriages or divorce, it comes down to a lot with money. And a lot of times that is because people do not communicate around it. And it's just, it's that thing. It just causes anxiety. And a lot of that can stem from, too, your household, of how you were brought up. Did your family talk about it? Did you know that there were issues, or were they very, savvy and savers, and they taught you that too, so it comes down to being able to communicate it. And that's the top thing that I think is the strength. People don't want to talk about it.
But do you have in mind what age, if it would be appropriate to talk money in a household with kids or children?
Yeah, I mean, you could start at once the child is at an age where, okay, now they're starting to do maybe some chores, so, I don't know, maybe around 6, 7 years old, and you're like, hey, here's your money, and, you know, have them set it aside. And if they want things, you know, have them know, okay, well, we're going to have you with the money that you have, you're going to have to, you know, we're going to take you to the store and you can kind of see how it works. Or showing them, taking them at some point to the grocery store and knowing that certain things cost money, so that the child doesn't just believe that, oh, I want that, I can get it. One thing that my brother and his girlfriend are doing with their son is he's a blessed child, and we all just love him. And I feel like, and I know I can be bad on wanting to give him everything, but he wants a trampoline.
Okay.
And normally they would probably be like, all right, like we'll get it for him for one of the holidays. But no, because they were starting to recognize like he has a lot of stuff and he needs to learn to appreciate. And they will, you know, when there's certain things that he wants, you know, with the money he gets for holidays, taking him to the store so he can realize, okay, I have this amount, what will it get me? And then having, you know, they have this chart. I want my trampoline, and everything, like different chores, builds up different things. And once he reaches that certain number, he knows that he can get it. And so it builds in of teaching them that, you know, you've got to work for certain things. Everything isn't all handed out. And you know what? There is a value associated with the certain items that you want. So there are books out there that start, you know, when children are little, of teaching them, you know, just what is the value of money? Because that's where it comes down to. Understanding that there's a value associated with it and that it only will go so far.
No, and on that point, so what is the best way to save money then?
Yeah, so my kind of number one top rule, or I feel like is so important, and this is something that I go through with all clients, is setting up systematic savings. And what I mean by that is when you're getting paid, most people will have 100% of their pay. Nowadays, it's most do direct deposit. There are still some clients that will get the physical check, but majority of them are doing direct deposit. Right directly from your pay, have your payroll add another, so have a certain percentage automatically taken from your pay to go into a savings bucket. And not only that, maybe have it be one of these outside online, you know, savings accounts. Capital One 360 has some really good ones. They don't charge fees. They don't have minimums. It's out of sight, out of mind. And that can really allow individuals to build up, whether it's just building up an emergency fund, or maybe you have the emergency fund, but now you're going to set up different, what I call buckets for different goals. So you might have your car fund, you might have your vacation fund. Maybe there is a larger item that you want to buy and you build up. And so this way, you're able to visualize and know how much is in each. And I think that's important too. I know for myself, I think it's why I have lists everywhere. I like to write things out because if I can see it, it's almost like it makes more sense to me, or there's real meaning. So by having these different buckets rather than just having one savings account, you're able to really designate to see where things are at. And setting it up systematically is pulling that out of your budget. It's no longer in your cash flow. You're paying yourself first. And now you've set aside money that you can use in the future. It's the same kind of philosophy of individuals that have employer retirement plans, whether that be a 401k, a 403b, maybe it's a 457, a simple. Those are coming out automatically. Okay. And that's why, you know, individuals, they can start to see those grow because they didn't have to physically put the money in. And so, and it doesn't, you know, you can start off smaller because that kind of the amount there's other variables that have to come into play, but you got to just start. And I have found that when you start doing that and you start actually seeing your balances increase, it really plays with your mind of saying, hey, I got it up to 500.
Yep.
Let me get it to 1,000. And you often will start to build it up quicker. Or if you need to pull money from the account because an emergency happens, you'll start to see that people that are doing it that way are like, I don't want to pull the money. And I'll say, but that's what it's there for. Like, we put it there. And then it will make you want to rebuild that back up. So I can't stress enough, if you've had issues with saving money and you don't know where to start, you really want to set it up and start saving systematically. Have it just come out of your account, out of sight, out of mind. And just watch the dollars grow. And as it builds up, and depending on what those other buckets, now maybe you're getting into second layer of savings. So now maybe you add a Roth IRA. And again, you have it going into the Roth automatic. The more that you can do automatic, the better it's going to be for you. And the more you're going to actually see those dollars accumulate. Because we're busy individuals. If you're working a full-time job, you have kids at home, they're in sports, you're trying to make dinner, you're doing housework, laundry. Yeah. You forget. You forget. And so setting it up systematically is just going to take it out, and you're going to allow to see that money grow faster for you.
No, that's good information you're doing. You're giving us here. But one thing I think I learned where people cannot save is debt. So how can you avoid too much debt then?
Yeah, so that's a big one. And starting right off, this is where I feel like the lack sometimes of the education. I mean, starting right off probably from high school, if kids start going to, they go to college and they take on loans, they may not understand what they're taking on. And now they come out of college, they graduate, and they have large student loan debts. And now, they're trying to, they want to have their own apartment and they need a car. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, the money just keeps going out the door. And now, they're opening up credit cards, and now you're building up credit card debt. So really there needs to be a focus of understanding your cash flow. Okay. And what I mean by that is understanding what's coming in and what's going out, because often people just look at the number of, hey, I just got a job and I'm making $50,000 a year. Okay, well, what does that really look like in terms of after you pay taxes, maybe your retirement plan, and now you put in your savings? So you really want to be taking a look at what's actually coming in, what your net amount is. And you want to, calculate that over a year, come up with what that monthly amount looks like. And now you need to start backing in what are your other expenses. And you need to make sure that you're staying in line within that. So really learning to live within your means. We live in a society where, people will, they want flashy cars or big houses, or they want to have every toy known to earth. And that keeping up with the Joneses effect.
And vacation.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that if that fits in your budget. But a lot of times, sometimes it doesn't. And people take on too much consumer debt than they can handle. And that's where people get into problems. And so I recommend, I love the 50-30-20 budget. That allows you, it's all based on your after-tax income that comes in, and it breaks out so you can see, okay, this is how much I should have for my fixed expenses. This is how much I have for my lifestyle expenses. So discretionary spending, however you say, but that's, spending it on whatever you kind of want, as long as you stay within that. And then this is the amount that goes towards my debts and my savings. And so really analyzing those numbers. Now, sometimes those 50-30-20, the percentages may have to change a little bit, but the end goal is to make sure that it equals that 100%, because now you're living within your means. And if people did this more and really charted those numbers before signing a lease for an apartment, buying a home, and not knowing if it fits in their price, because again, it's not just the mortgage payment, that if you're worried about, what are those utilities going to look like?
Yeah.
What are the other expenses? So graphing this out will allow you to really see what those numbers are, and then make a judgment call of, okay, that is good because it leaves X, Y, and Z for us to be able to take the trips we want to take, or, you know, the spa day, whatever it is, or those certain hobbies, you know, some gyms and things like that can get very expensive. So it's really spending some time. And I recommend when people are starting out, you need to set up some type of cash flow tracking. So whether you're using, there's mint.com, there's a lot of free sites out there. You need to have something that's capturing what you're actually spending, and you need to carve out at least once a month. But I'd almost say starting out, look at it twice a month, maybe at the first of the month and around the 15th. Really get a handle of what's coming in and what's going out. The more that you do this, you could go down to a monthly basis, and it probably would only take you about 15 minutes. But actually look at the numbers. People do not do that. And then if you have gotten yourself into some debt, again, you still want to do this, and then you want to look at that pot of money that you have available to debt, and maybe you have to sacrifice and take some money from your discretionary in order to pay that debt back. So now you've freed up that debt payments to go back into your cash flow or to savings. There's some good strategies out there. I like the snowball, you know, attacking one debt at a time. I like going after the smaller balances first, because again, as you pay that off, it stimulates mentally, like you feel good, like, wow.
Yeah, it's a big relief, yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, going down that way. So it's all about balance. But I would say on part of it, it's actually sitting and drafting it and coming up with that plan. And that's where I think people get nervous. Their anxiety sets in. They feel like, well, if I just don't look at it, maybe it will go away. But it doesn't. It just increases. So it's really starting off. And that's where I feel like if there were things within high schools where students actually understood what they're signing up for, if they're going to be responsible for loans, because some of these student loan payments can be so high when they come up. It's almost like kids are set up at the beginning to almost fail. Yeah. Okay. And there's other pressures in society of, hey, I want to be going out all the time, or I want to be doing this. And they need to understand what it means, how to manage their cash flow, how to budget. And if they're doing that, they're, you know, it's still, you can still be having a good time. And again, then it lines up with, you know, what are incomes that are coming in and things like that.
And I would like to touch on what you just said about student when they go into college, they are set up for failure. So what are the questions parents can be asking before they take that loan, or before they engage in that college?
I think there has to be, you know, discussions around, you know, what is the child going to school for? You know, what is the cost? You know, how much can they afford for payments? Looking at some of these loans, because there's subsidized and there's unsubsidized. And more I'm seeing more loans that are being taken out on the unsubsidized area. And what the difference is, which a lot of people don't know, the subsidized loans are the ones where the interest is not going to accrue until after graduation. Until then, you're not being charged anything. Yeah. The unsubsidized, they start accruing interest from the start of that loan. And the interest rates can be very high. And so an individual might think that they've taken on $5,000 in loans, and then they graduate. And now all of a sudden, you know, that's up to $7,000, or, you know, because, and depending, you know, every semester, different ones are taken out. So I think having the conversations around that, and then, you know, what are they thinking for careers and things like that. I think more emphasis, and this is just a personal opinion, but it's more of seeing some of the loan amounts that I see, and sometimes the career paths are not necessarily aligned up with what they're doing, is maybe having students go to a community college for a year or two, take some general courses at a lower cost, maybe work a little bit to understand kind of what they want to do and then apply to that 2 years, the 4-year college or finish up there. I feel like that can make your dollars go a lot further. But I think it's just having an understanding around how much is how much is it gonna cost? What is the school providing? Are there grants? Are there scholarships? Have kids applying for scholarships? But then having the discussion around, okay, if the parent's gonna take on this after, this is what the student, and make sure the student has an understanding of what that's gonna look like.
So
I just don't think they look at it or necessarily always talk.
Yeah, I don't think they even know about this aspect of it. But
and the student, I was going to say student loans, a lot of times, and I've seen it in my practice, individuals will fall into, their credit score will get impacted. It will impact their ability to get other loans or things in the future, because when they first came out, they didn't handle the payments appropriately. And that's hard to then turn that around. So it's important to have an understanding of what that's going to look like, prior to that, so that they don't fall into anything.
Well said. But as you talk about credit score, so what can you tell us about credit score?
Yeah, so credit score is going to follow you throughout your life, and credit scores, they can be used for, getting a job, getting an apartment. We all know anything that if we're trying to purchase, a house or a vehicle, your credit score, depending on what that number is, can align up with how favorable of an interest rate that you're going to have. Now, unfortunately, you have to have credit, because in order to get any of these things, if you don't have any credit cards open, and I've had this happen with clients where they may have had issues in the past and then they paid them off and closed them all off. Now they go try to buy something, like, you're denied, you don't have any credit. So you have to have credit. And so I could go a big spiel on some of the way credit is set up that I feel like is not fair to individuals.
Yeah.
But it kind of is what it is. And so they are looking at, how much available credit. So maybe you have 10,000 open, maybe it's within different credit cards. How much are you actually utilizing? They're looking at making your payments on time. They're taking a look at how long, like how much credit history do you have? A small percentage looks at what they call service kind of credit. So that could be, electric bills, gas bills, you have medical bills. And so it's so important to make sure payments are on time. So setting things up systematically on that too. Just like I said, for saving, if you can set up your debt payments to automatically pay when they're due, any of those kind of reoccurring, you're not going to worry about now that I haven't paid that, because sometimes it could just be really you forgot. You want to make sure that if you have different credit cards, how do you have them spread around? Because if you have a card, and maybe you have one card, $5,000 balance, and it's at $4,800, like that, they look bad at that because you don't have that much available credit. So you really want to make sure. Now, at the end of the day, this again goes into the education. If you can have the credit cards and you want to be paying them off, paying them off fully and on time. Now, the one thing that gets me is, so if you found yourself into some credit card debt and you've done the snowball, payment strategy, and you've paid them down, the initial thought would be to close that. Well, if you close that, you get rid of your history. And the history is a big part of what your score is. And also, depending on what that limit was on that card, well, you've just shortened now what your available credit is. So you're thinking you're doing good by paying it off.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'm excited to look at my credit score. It's going to go up. And you're like, it's gone down? How could that happen? So you have to still keep them open. And I'll tell clients periodically use it to buy gas and pay it off, because credit card companies can just automatically close them if they don't see activity. So it really all comes down to being a smart consumer, but you have to at least at some point, starting off, within your career, have a card. And I think, for students, if you want to have your child have a card while they're at school, but also to start building up some credit in their name, maybe you open up one of these kind of like prepaid ones through a bank. And so you've got money on there almost as collateral and they use it and then it pays it down just so that they can have something. Because again, if someone or a child, a student, they don't understand necessarily the full mechanics, you don't want them having a credit card early and now they start, they're going out and they're buying drinks for everyone at the bar and they're buying this and that and they're going on vacation and now they've got debt and they have nothing to pay because maybe they are just working work study. That's going to crush their credit score early on. And again, it follows you through and it will take time to do that. So that's where I think, there needs to be more education around it, more. And as we know, credit cards, those interest rates can be as high as 29%. So it's just, it more comes down to knowledge. Knowledge is key and individuals don't understand how they work. And now you get caught up into, an issue and now your credit score has taken a hit. One thing with the credit scores, they can range from 300 to 850, usually to really qualify for some of those good interest rates, especially when we're looking at car loans or we're looking at mortgages. You've got to have that score over 700. If you're starting to see them or you have credit issues, this is another thing that's funny because someone has credit issues and that they may pay, they may not. And they need a car and they go get a car loan and they have like a 13% interest rate, which makes the payments even worse. So, but that's how it is, so you have to have an understanding of, with the credit scores and things like that, but also it goes into how you're handling your debt and how you're setting things up because it can be hard. I recommend a lot of banks will provide you with your credit score on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Credit card companies do it now too. You usually just have to enroll and say that you want it, but they provide it as a service benefit. And they'll usually tell you where they're pulling because there are 3 different credit reporting agencies. So you can have different scores with each of them, and it's because of the percentages that they're aligning to payment history, payments on time, utilization. Like they'll use different criteria of how they're coming to those numbers. So, looking at the differences and then also requesting your free credit report once a year and making sure that there's nothing on there that doesn't belong to you, or maybe there was a debt. Like I've had where clients are like, oh my gosh, I moved and I didn't even realize there was still a Verizon bill and now I'm in collections with it. And now they're like, we were just going to buy our new home and now you're stuck having to try to get that off of your credit report. So if you're thinking of a big purchase too, you always want to check that first if there's any issues. And often if the mortgage lender, if they know about that, they can even give you guidance of what you need to do on that. But make sure that you're looking at it, especially over the past year. We know that fraud was on a rise, especially unemployment fraud and things like that. You want to make sure that your information was not taken and you want to request that. I'll have clients that will pay for, say, like a credit comma. Yep. I would go through your bank or go through the credit card company because I've seen credit comma scores off, okay. Like upwards of like 100 points. And you don't want to think that you're going to buy a car and you think your score is 700 and then it pulls up and it's like 625.
Wow.
You want to know that beforehand and really work on, maybe it is that you've had a small card and you have the money to pay it off. Well, maybe you take that money and you pay it off. And these are things too. There are different sites out there. If you do have issues with your credit and you need to build that back up, there are some nonprofit foundations too that will work with people to just strictly help them rebuild and repair their credit.
Yeah. No, I think
it's important.
Yeah, early education in financing, I think will help. Like you said, a lot of people, they don't know all like the different aspects, different and there's some confusion right there.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about credit score is very important. Where yes, I think inquiries get you down too, right? If you have a lot of inquiries,
they can, but often if you're shopping around for a car loan or you're shopping around for a mortgage, they'll anticipate that there would be more inquiries because there's certain things that are being pulled up.
Okay.
So they may not have as much of an impact.
Right. Okay. No,
but if it's that you're opening up multiple kind of credit cards and things like that, and now, you're adding on to them and things like that, that will impact your score.
No, well said. I really like what I'm hearing, and thank you. In this day and age, how can people maintain liquidity?
Right now, more people are probably keeping some cash on the sidelines just because of what we've seen over the past year and a half with COVID, job loss and things like that. One thing, we're in a low interest rate environment. So, having the cash on hand isn't necessarily going to earn a ton, but there are different, online high yield money market accounts that can generate higher yields than what you're going to get maybe from your bank. Checking every month, Bankrate will provide what some of the top online money market accounts are, and just spreading things out and then having an understanding of what are your monthly expenses, how much should you have set aside and have liquid in case of emergencies that you're needing to pull. And then maybe it's a matter of having some of that spread out so that it's not all just in one institution. You would have them at different ones. So again, doing a little bit of research online, but there's so much that's available out there now.
Oh, wow. So when do you know a client is ready to invest in the stock market? Because everything, Robinhood, Bitcoins, and it's like everybody feel like they are a financial advisor on their own.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If you are working for a company and they offer you a 401k, you need to start that. Even if there's other debt, like even if it's 3%, you've got to start somewhere. And so that can start to give you kind of that segue into, okay, dollar cost averaging in the market. You've got mutual funds that you're buying. Now, the whole thing with the Robinhoods and the crypto, some of that, you have to look at some of that as almost gambling. And I don't get involved too much with that with clients right now just because of compliance purposes. But my biggest thing to clients will be, okay, well, let's look. What do you have for funds? How are you invested? And all right, this is your expenses. This is how much you have set up in emergency reserves. Do you maybe have a little bit that you can carve out that you could start investing in the market? But have an understanding of, I may lose all this money, and are you comfortable with it? Because some of the way of those stocks, we saw with Robinhood, people were going in and buying things and not necessarily understanding how the market works. And, they wake up and now things are already down, half. And they've lost out on that. And now they start seeing the values coming down. You have to, at a point, if that's how you're doing it, if you're trying to become a day trader and you're trying to work the market, in a way, you're gambling. And if you don't understand how it works, then you have to set yourself up and be comfortable with, if I lost that all, okay, well, that's okay, And if you can't say that, then you don't really have you shouldn't be doing that. But I look at that as different than having a client that, all right, we've got emergency reserves set up. We've got some other buckets. We want to set up a Roth, because the earlier that individuals can set up a Roth IRA, the better. And that's a great vehicle that a college student, they make some income over summer. I will often have clients' children, like if we have unsubsidized loans, let's have them start making some interest payments, and let's have them open up a Roth IRA, even if it's $25 a month. And maybe we put that in index funds or exchange traded funds and put that same amount in so that it's growing, because then we're looking at the long term. We're looking at long-term growth. If you're talking about, and there are individuals that can start getting into the stock market because they're knowledgeable about it. They know what they're doing. And it's just about being versed in it. But if you're getting into some of that crypto or jumping onto some of these, hey, I know someone that bought that stock and it tripled and I'm going to put everything into it. Well, you better know a lot about that and understand how to read charts of, when things are high, because the problem too is individuals, they want to put in when a stock is up 50%, when really you should be looking to try to buy things that have taken a hit. What are some of these sectors that really got crushed during COVID, but have a good chance of rallying back up? But people don't necessarily want to put into things that low. They're all chasing the things that have, that have risen without an understanding of knowing that one thing can come overnight, or maybe you have someone all of a sudden go on one of these social media platforms and make a comment or a statement that may not even be relevant. And now they wake up and it's just all, it's dropped. And now what happens? People get completely nervous and they sell. When in a way, you gotta kind of be able to hold steady and wait for it to come back up if it's a good stock. If it's a good company that is going to come back up, because the prices are going to move. And an important thing just in looking at a portfolio in whole is you want to look at your portfolio and make sure, okay, how am I positioned? How would I feel if it dropped 10 or 20%? Okay. More so than what would I feel if it rose 20%. People all want it to gain, but they can't. So you'll have someone that says, I'm aggressive, or why is it my account making 20%? Because when the market was going down, you were very nervous and you wanted to be more conservative. You can't have it both ways. And so that is always a challenge of trying to figure out where should someone be comfortable. Because at the end of the day, if the market drops 20%, you have to hold. If you sell then, it's going to be that much harder to make it back up. You need to hold steady and know, and then also be comfortable. People, when the markets dropped last year, all of a sudden, I'm not putting money into the 401k. Oh my gosh, my account's going down. If you had continued your contributions into your retirement accounts, when things came back, you were making double, triple that. Yeah, definitely. But it's anxiety and people don't understand, and they all are chasing the profits. And, quick
profit too, quick profit. Yeah. You have to build it, right?
Exactly. Well, and then they don't understand there's the whole tax consequences around which is a whole other kind of topic. But if you're getting involved in things like that, you really want to have an understanding of what your foundation is first. Okay. And what are you putting into it, and be comfortable with, if that's where you're going, that you may lose all of it. That's not the same if you're getting into, long-term investing and you're maybe going into exchange traded funds, or you're set up in stock models that, are buying specific stocks and things like that, or a mutual fund. I have X, Y, and Z. Is it going to all go down tomorrow? Mutual fund is made up of a basket of stocks. Okay. So every company would have to go to zero before you lost. Yeah. That's why there's that added diversification. So again, it comes around being knowledgeable and understanding. But I think, the way of the Robinhood, it did bring in a lot of people that were looking at that of more of a gambling and, hey, I can make a quick buck, and then not understand how things work or how the markets move and things like that. Exciting information, and I like it. Thank you. But like I said, we are here with Katie MacDonald from MacDonald Wealth Management. So now, Katie, you want to talk about your business. I know we have a slide here for your business. This is MacDonald Wealth Management. I don't know if you want to talk about your business, what exactly you do,
or you can get more clients. So we are clients from Katie. She help us manage our business and financial, personal financial. She's great, but we have her here now, so you can hear from her. Let's go, Katie.
Yeah, so again, as I mentioned in the beginning, I am a certified financial planner, and I do comprehensive financial planning and goal tracking. So there are systems that I have set up where I analyze your information. First things too, I really want to get a handle of what are the client's goals, because again, those goals are going to allow me to see what needs to be done with the clients. Are they saving enough? Do debts need to be paid down? Should they be adding more into different things? Helping them, I'll help clients come up with what is that price point for a house that they should get. Are they trying to buy a car? Are kids going to school? There's so many different things that we're looking at. And so it really puts everything into a spot where individuals can then have an understanding of where they stand and where they're trying to get to, and then start to maybe prioritize, because they may not have all the resources to hit all of the goals that they're trying to do, but we're going to come up with a plan to reach them and look and run different, projections for retirement and things like that. I put a big emphasis on cash flow, understanding cash flow, tracking, understanding what's coming in and out, because at the end of the day, how do you really know what you need for retirement if you don't know how much you're spending? Because you only have enough money as to what you're spending. So, I'll often sometimes hear people come up with, someone needs X, Y, and Z to retire. Okay, maybe some people need that, but not everyone, because it all is coming down to what are you spending? And people do not have an understanding of how much is going out. And again, really knowing what is that income that's coming in. And then off of that, I'll do investment management for clients where, maybe it is investment accounts or setting up Roth IRAs, different employer retirement plans and things like that. Again, I am fee only, so I do not buy anything that is commissioned based, so I do not sell any products. If individuals are looking for that, I'll refer them out or provide them guidance, and maybe some of that they're going to do on their own side. I use a lot of exchange traded funds, exchange traded models that have lower expense ratios and things like that. And it's all about, again, coming up with what is going to be that suitable plan that the individual is going to be comfortable with. Because trust me, when the markets are going down 20% or 30%, I'm invested as I've got my clients invested. And, I don't want someone to be worried when they go to bed that, am I going to lose everything? So it's about really building the relationship. And that's why my firm, I center it around the financial planning first, because that's where I really get a sense of knowing where individuals are at. Often I will not take on a relationship that is someone that just wants to do investing unless it's under certain circumstances, and I still get an understanding of where the individual is at, because that ties in line with what their risk tolerance might be. And the more that I can know an individual or family's true, financial position, the more guidance that I'm able to give to get them ultimately to the goals that they're trying to reach. Because again, it's based on what the individual's goals are, and we'll go through different scenarios, because often there's not one way to get there. And then it's trying to find what is that perfect fit that's going to work for those clients.
Yeah, so
and giving them options.
Good. I think we can learn everything on this episode where we talk about finance, credit score, debt, and how to kind of take advantage of a financial planner. So can you talk about your team? I think shout out to Arya Conway.
Yep. So Arya is in the office. Arya handles any of kind of the client relationship side of the business along with the marketing. So Aria often sometimes may be the first person that an individual is talking to in order for scheduling and things like that. So she'll help with some of that kind of client relationship side, and then also on the marketing side. So
yes,
I wouldn't be able to do it without her. She does a lot behind the scenes. So
yeah, definitely. So last word for Katie MacDonald.
Yeah, just, if you've been nervous about your finances, or have had anxiety or stress, especially over the last year, of wondering, how are you going to manage things? How are you going to get forward? Just start. If you're not comfortable reaching out to an advisor, start checking some of the free resources online. Start, read some books. That will really help you, but get started, because the more that you just put yourself into it, the easier it will get, because I understand there is anxiety around money, and sometimes it feels like it's easier just to not have to deal with it. But you have to, if you want to get ahead, and sit for a bit on what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. And I'll say too, if there's individuals watching this that maybe have been interested in becoming an advisor, or maybe you are an advisor yourself and you're a CFP and you're starting out and you're not sure where you're looking to go, absolutely reach out to me. If there's any way that I can provide information or mentor, or, possibly provide opportunities in my office, I am willing and wanting to do that. I would love to be able to mentor an individual, because I've been in that position myself. And so, I think getting in this field, the more that, you have that guidance around, it will help you go a long way.
So do you have any upcoming event you want to promote?
Yeah, so not yet, but as now things are starting to open up again, we will be starting to put on more. I've done webinar events in the past, and we've hosted first-time homebuyer seminars and estate planning seminars. So there'll be more of that starting to go on as things are opening up.
Yes, we are here with Katie MacDonald from MacDonald Wealth Management. This is our sixth episode, so we enjoyed talking with her, and I think she had a good time. We had a good time, and thank you for staying on. Like I said, we talk about a lot in terms of financial advising and how to start your business, and I think she can help. So you can reach out to her on MacDonaldWealth.net. This is Katie MacDonald from MacDonald Wealth Management, LLC. And Katie, thank you for coming. That was a great time. And I think you gave us a lot of information. And we enjoy you. And hopefully we can have you soon.
Yes, thank you. And I would say follow us on Instagram, Financially Fit with Katie. You'll get tips that we put out there a few times a week. We're going to be having a Twitter. The Twitter page may be up too. Aria's been working on that, but that will provide all kinds of different, we have our Financial Friday tip, just little things to help you out. And then you can reach me directly through the website. So you can, if you're interested in a consultation, I do complimentary. So there is not a cost. There are half-an-hour calls that we do. You can reach me through the website, or you can email either Aria at MacDonaldWealth.net to schedule, or myself, Katie at MacDonaldWealth.net.
All right. Thank you. This is the Divine Purpose Podcast. On our sixth episode, we had Katie MacDonald with us, talking about financial and talking about tips and credit score, debt, and she did a good job. So thank you for staying with us, and we'll see you soon. Subscribe and share this episode. Thank you.